This is Dr. Gadja, an economist, computer scientist, medical doctor, and global health PhD epidemiologist. I do this as a call in to help Ghana chart a course for greatness and, in the process, help Africa along the way. There are many issues we'll be discussing on this platform, and we welcome your comments, rebukes, and questions. Today's topic. This is Dr. Gaja coming to you again. This is Dr. Gaja. I'm back to talk about something that is not the regular stuff that I talk about. This is on a social issue. And what is it? It is about this bill that is before the Ghana Parliament. Excuse me. And what is it about? It's about LBGT. In fact, basically the rights for those with alternative gender to be able to move around or be able to marry or do whatever they want to do. And it caught my attention especially because the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Ghana, had given a speech in which he laid out the consequences economically for Ghana. And I saw somewhere Ghana about to experience economic pain. And the effect of what passing a bill to limit the rights of gays and lesbians will be for Ghana from her perspective. And I wouldn't say hers alone, but based on what the U.S. is trying to do. And Ghana, as an African country, like many other African countries, is resisting passing a bill that gives some rights or rights to persons of alternative gender. Now, I will say just from the onset that I am not against gays, neither am I in favor of straights. I'm just for humans, and that is it. I think every human being has to have the right to do whatever they want to do, in as much as what they do does not negatively affect the other person, either morally, consciously in their mind, or physically. I believe everybody should have the right to live whatever life they want to live, in as much as it does not bother other people, and it is done in a way that it doesn't infringe upon anybody else's happiness. So for me, the issue of the gay bill, it's a non-starter. It's a useless one. It's not one that the country has to waste so much on. It is petty. It is just like pride, traditional pride or whatever. But it does not allow everybody to be free. Now, I agree that Ghana's tradition does not support that. And majority of Ghanaians do not favor that. But if you think about it, putting yourself in that situation where you want just some right, and because you are categorized as this person or that person, you cannot get it, it makes you feel bad. Now, that is not my issue. I don't know too much about these things. I'm not an expert in those areas, but let it suffice it to be this way. There are many important things that Ghana can be thinking about instead of this issue. There are many bills they could bring to Parliament to pass to help the individual Ghanaian, to make better the life of the citizen. To what extent does this bill, passed or not passed, help the individual Ghanaian? It doesn't. This is a personal issue. Now, the US has decided to push that as a policy globally. Now, I don't know if you know this or if you've noticed. If you've been following global politics for a while, you notice that the US usually picks up a moral issue, a high up moral issue, behind which they put their global economic policies. For instance, in the past was democracy. And they use these things to choose winners and losers. And it works. If you follow, you are chosen as a winner. And you will see tremendous transformation in your economy. Because they come around to help you. They've chosen winners and losers throughout their existence as a nation. You can even talk about Japan, you can talk about China itself. Was chosen as a winner amongst other things. The only thing is that China did not follow exactly as the US expected it to. So they use this thing to choose winners and losers. Ghana has to think fast and hard. Do they want to be winners? Do they want to better the lot of their people? If that is what they want to do, they should forget about this and forget about even passing that bill. It is not necessary. If you do not like people to be gays or lesbians, there are other ways to do it. That is not about a bill. That will still give them the chance to have life as others in the country can have it. You can begin advocacy, the government can begin an advocacy to educate people in a way that it's not discriminatory to those that are gays and lesbians, but to educate them in such a way that they are informed, well informed, and decide on what they want to do, make the right choices. An informed person makes a better choice or a better decision than one that is not informed. So there are ways to do this. But I don't believe that there should be any way whereby you pick on a group and say they cannot have this, do that. I don't think it's important. I don't think that is what a nation, a country should be focused on. That who can a person marry, what can a person do. I don't think it's a country's focus. However, if those actions may lead to pandemics, diseases, and other things that affect other people, then we can talk about that. That is just my 2 cents on this gay lesbian issue. I think it is very much a waste of the Ghanaian government's time. Now it is very sensitive for the people. Yes, but it's the government that has brought it up. The people were not thinking about that. So the government bringing it up is wasting its own time in helping the Ghanaian or the people of Ghana to move forward. There was no need, or there is no need. And I would suggest that they drop it. And if they are serious about what they believe in, try to create advocacies in pushing the agenda forward, like Obama did in the US to make the bills for gays and lesbians to be passed. He encouraged advocacy. When I went to the US some 30-some years ago, the situation was worse. There were lynchings, or maybe attacks, sudden attacks, and gays and lesbians dying at obscure places, and it was things that people did to them. people beat them, they jump them, basically, they attack them. And if you were one of those, you wouldn't want that to be done to you. So, with that same thinking, we should wish that people's choices should not be that which makes them, quote unquote, bad people, and so to be discriminated against. I don't think that is okay. I feel that a country has to allow everybody to live and live freely as members of the community. Now, this way of focusing on what does not matter instead of what matters has been with Ghana for quite some time now. Since our independence, we have focused on the wrong things. Instead of focusing on things to take us forward, we allow petty squabbles to derail us from the path of development and progress for our people. Petty squabbles. Let me take the opportunity to talk about this. Even in some of the instances where members from neighboring African countries come to our country, because of simple tribal sentiments, we push people away. Meanwhile, those immigration or migration factors will have led to a better economic condition for us, because all that is aggregate demand, which, all things being equal, should go to increase production and create more work and lead to GDP and progress in the country. We lose all that. I remember before in the 60s, most of you, I don't know if you were there, but in the 60s, Ghana decided to forcefully ask Nigerians to leave. For what reason? Now, it was the coming in of all these people when Ghana gained independence that made Ghana to springboard very quickly after independence. But just when they thought they were okay, they decided to forcefully ask their Nigerian neighbors, counterparts, brothers and sisters, to leave their shores. And soon after that, Ghana's economy started suffering. And I don't know if we recognize that it was the effect of that policy. Then, in about 1983, Nigeria was doing well as an economy. And then, just immediately, quite after that, they also said Ghanaians that were in Nigeria should leave. And it affected the Nigerian economy after that. But what was very shocking was, it wasn't that the Ghanaians were doing anything bad. But most of the Nigerians said, yes, Ghana did it to us and we're doing it to us. My friend, such pettiness, such hatred, such tribal sentiments will be what drags Africa down, and Africa never sees the daylight of development. I want to read to you something that a friend of Africa wrote, just to make the point that I'm trying to make, just to buttress the point that I'm trying to make. And this friend of Africa is Singapore's former Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew. He has said many things, he's written many things, and if you have the chance, you can probably get some of his articles or his book and read what he said. But I'll read to you what Lee Kuan Yew said from a website on Ghana or on Africa, and see if you can see what I'm trying to talk about, that these things will not take us forward. And some is like when they see a foreigner doing well, especially when it's not a foreigner like a white man, but it's an African from another country doing well, they begin to pick at them. Not too long, I heard, like even South Africa did, trying to expel everybody who is not from South Africa, who is an African from South Africa. Such xenophobia tendencies don't help anybody. And I heard Ghana was trying to do that again to Nigerians, that Nigerians cannot sell this, but you have Chinese selling corn. I mean, I know that the Ghana Constitution has something that says that foreigners cannot engage in indigenous African or Ghana business, such as selling, peddling corn or plantain on the street. But I have seen on my visit to Ghana, Chinese selling corn and plantain, roasted plantain by the roadside. And yet, Ghanaians don't say anything to the Chinese, but they are very willing to confront the Nigerian who has a small store in the market and say, hey, you are not supposed to trade and all that. I plead with us. Those things don't help. If we really want our country to develop, we have to change our attitude. Now, the government has identified that, has said that even the US aid on the policy of development of Ghana, they have a policy, and they took what the government said, that changing of attitude. But there is nobody advocating or trying to teach how we will change our attitude. So that's a big gap there that somebody can get in. And I feel that as a president, it should be your duty every evening to try to educate your people, so that, because wealth, prosperity, success, development, all those things are taught. You learn the behavior, the attitude of success as a country. And so if the president doesn't know that, they can hire people who know that. So at least every time the president is on air trying to educate the citizenry, so they can understand what the country needs to be doing to develop. Because we don't know. And most of the things we do are the things that keep us undeveloped. So I'll go forward to read to you Singapore's former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew, the father of the country's economic miracle of the last 50 years. He was a frequent visitor to Africa in the 1960s. On one such trip in 1964, he visited 17 African capitals to acquaint himself with what the newly independent African countries were doing to lift themselves from economic backwardness, itself a legacy of European colonialism of the previous century. From what he saw, Lee Kuan Yew was not best impressed. You remember, this is my comment, I'll continue shortly. You remember Singapore had also, or was just struggling to gain independence from Malaysia at the time. So this Prime Minister thought there were lessons he could learn from his African counterparts. I'm continuing. I was not optimistic about Africa, he confessed later. So what informed his thinking? He explained in his fat book, published in 2000, the year 2000, From Third World to First World, The Singapore Story, 1965 to 2000, that certain things were happening in Africa at the time that did not seem quite right to him. For example, while in Lagos, Nigeria, in January 1966 to attend a Commonwealth Heads of State Conference, Lee Kuan Yew was a bit alarmed by how Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa's government was doing things. I went to bed that night at the Federal Palace Hotel in Lagos, convinced that they were a different people playing to a different set of rules. True to his fears, only days after the Commonwealth Conference ended, and just as Lee Kuan Yew and his delegation had arrived in Ghana from Lagos, a military coup happened in Lagos in which President Baliwa was killed. In Ghana, the Singaporean Prime Minister was welcomed heartily by President Kwame Nkrumah, who was very proud of his bright 30-year-old Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, William Abraham. Abraham had taken a first class in classics at Oxford University, England, and was a fellow of the university's All Souls College. Lee Kuan Yew was a bit puzzled. I was impressed with Abraham, but wondered why a country so dependent on agriculture should have its brightest and best do classics, Latin and Greek. Lee Kuan Yew wrote many years later, but that was Africa, and that is still Africa. We study what we don't need and need what we don't study. After inheriting an educational system from the colonialists who wanted not more than paper pushers and lots of messengers, the newly independent African countries just carried on with the inherited educational system as if no independence had come at all, and as if the agendas and aspirations of the colonials were one and the same. This explains why even a visionary president such as Kwame Nkrumah was proud of a 30-year-old Vice-Chancellor of Ghana's premier university who had taken a first in classics, Latin and Greek. Imagine how Latin and Greek will develop Ghana's cocoa or plantain farms. Imagine what a man who had gorged himself on Latin and Greek would impart to the students under his charge at the University of Ghana. Any wonder that Ghana and Africa are still treading water? I wondered what would happen to these two countries, Ghana and Nigeria, Lee Kuan Yew recalls. They were then the brightest hopes of Africa. They were among the first countries to get their independence. Ghana in 1957, followed shortly by Nigeria in 1960. Lee Kuan Yew continues. 1 month later, after Nigeria's coup, on 24th February, as Nkrumah was being welcomed with a 21-gun salute in Beijing, China, an army coup took place in Accra. People danced in the streets as the army leaders arrested leading members of Nkrumah's government. My fears for the people of Ghana were not misplaced. Notwithstanding their rich cocoa plantations, gold mines, and Volta Dam, which could generate enormous amount of power, Ghana's economy sank into disrepair and has not recovered the early promise it held out at independence in 1957. The news I heard saddened me. I never visited Ghana again. And guess what happened next? After the Ghana coup, Lee Kuan Yew inquired about William Abraham, the bright young vice-chancellor, and was told that Abraham had entered a monastery in California, USA. I felt sad, Lee Kuan Yew recounts. If their brightest and best gave up the fight and sought refuge in a monastery, not in Africa but in California, the road to recovery would be long and difficult, and that is exactly what it has been. Long and difficult for Africa. Lee Kuan Yew remembers his visit to Zambia in 1970 for the Non-Aligned Summit. Zambia's economy had declined at the time. Everything was in short supply. The former Singaporean Prime Minister recalls, the shops were empty Imported toiletries were absent, and there was little by way of local substitutes. President Kaunda's major preoccupation was politics, black versus white politics, not the economics of growth for Zambia. After Kaunda left, the lot of Zambians did not improve much. In contrast, Singapore's economic fortunes have been going up and up and up since those days, to the extent where they are today. An African visiting the island state for the first time could be excused if he rubs his eyes to make sure what he is seeing is real. Whatever Africa does from now on, the continent should find time to study how Singapore got it right. In just the same period that Africa appears to have lost its way, in fact, there is a lot to learn from how this small island city, a size of 264 square miles, the 189th largest of the world's 206 economies, rose from poverty to wealth. That is what I just read to you, excerpts from Lee Kuan Yew, and the one who wrote this basically summarizes. The guy is Joseph B. Winful. Joseph B. Winful. It was published on Modern Ghana, the Modern Ghana website, in 2019, April 2019. Now, when you look at this, you can see clearly what Lee Kuan Yew is trying to tell us. These sentiments, pettiness, focusing on the wrong things, we have to leave them if we want to go forward. Some of the struggle is that you are not using an African, you are not using a Ghanaian for the job. My friend, let's focus on who is the best to do the job, not where does the person come from. There are so many Africans that are being used by other countries to help them go forward and develop. Those same Africans, when they come to the continent or they come to Ghana, they are chased away. Their views are not accepted. I have tried to go to the president to give a few advice. They don't understand what I'm trying to tell them. And yet, they say it is rubbish. It is sad. And as the Bible said, I try not to be partisan or political on my podcast or on my talk. But as the Bible said, it is difficult to cast pearls before swines and pick up the value as pearls. I've tried to paraphrase this. I'm not saying it as you could see, as the Bible actually said it. When you put valuables before swines, you will not pick up values. They will destroy them. They will trample them. And that is exactly what is happening in Ghana and Africa as a whole. Only few countries have tried to harness the wisdom, the expertise of its citizens, and in some cases other Africans, to help them go forward. We are self-conceited. We are full of ourselves. I'm just being honest. It is sad to be saying these things about my own country, but we are full of ourselves, said that we cannot receive wisdom. I remember I told some economic minister somewhere that it is very silly to exchange gold, which is so enduring, so durable, for a commodity like oil, which is so fleeting, so wasteful, so just evaporates. And you think it's a good policy? They couldn't see it. They couldn't even understand it. I told them that barter trade taught us that when we are exchanging, in order to reduce the magnitude of loss between the parties, similar products or similar commodities are traded. For instance, gold and silver, gold and diamond. But not so volatile a commodity like oil for a commodity that is so enduring like gold, which you cannot even destroy if you try to. Lee Kuan Yew's assessment of the African country and Africa is our biggest plight. Even today, we still do black and white politics. We still want to see that our problem is still caused by somebody. Until we can see ourselves as the ones to solve our problem, we will continue to find who caused our problem, and we will never find it, but only waste our time and continue be in the problem. It is past, it is gone. Once we are still existing as a continent or a country, we have all it takes to become powerful. Even our own citizens, we think they are better off being shipped to other countries to go and work there. Meanwhile, all policies, maybe not in Ghana, but when you go outside in the West, everybody knows increased population is potential future wealth, economic wealth, except in Africa. We go into deals to ship our labor outside. Meanwhile, labor is the most essential commodity in production, every productive activity. Lee Kuan Yew said, we do not learn what we need. Basically, our system of education is skewed. You wonder what we are training our people for. The educational policy is crazy. And to think about it, they bring somebody from the West and to come and try to fix it, and he's worse. In fact, it's sad to think about. Make laws as if you cannot be promoted. If somebody is doing well and it's jumped, it's like it's an offense. Why do you have to go and take the exams before it's your turn? That is some of the problems. Somebody is in their system, middle school, and goes to take a high school exam and passes. Then they say, hey, why do you have to allow him to go to university? He was in middle school. My Lord, how then will you encourage people to work hard? How then do you encourage competition and excellence in education? If I work hard, I'll be penalized. Why should I then work hard? There is a lot that has to be done on Ghana and Africa. And now, in fact, the way we think. And I believe that somebody should be on the airwaves every day trying to incise us. Now, for instance, we keep raising prices on goods and services, forgetting that as we do that, it comes round. It's a spiral. It comes round and affects us too. And then we raise it again. It comes round and affects us, and we raise it again. And nobody is saying anything. The government does not even see it. And not to be against the government, because the next government may not also see it in the same form. Because we've gone down as a country since independence. So we should set our things right and not allow pettiness to continue to plague us and cause us from not going forward. Now the US uses these things to choose winners. It is a fact that they succeed in choosing winners with these things. If Ghana wants to go forward, there's no need for this bill. Spend the time on something else that will take you forward. And let's stop this pettiness. It is sad that most of us in the country, Ghana, do not even see that we have a problem. Hence, we don't think about solving it. Hence, the way we vote. We don't know we have a problem. The youth, there, almost 60 to 70%, I don't know the ratio, but don't take me on that, now working. And they think it's okay. The government can create work. They just don't know how. They just have to get somebody who knows how. You don't need anybody to help you if you know what to do. We don't know what to do. I'll be talking about something later on, because I heard that the economic minister or whatever, maybe not economic minister, but the government is proposing to ban some goods and services that Ghana imports. Why? Because it spends so much of its foreign currency, that means dollar reserves, on purchasing these items. So they want to stop or ban their importation so that they can save that money. This is like what we did in the 60s and 70s. We don't learn. I remember one time I heard a vice president trying to, I think it's bauxite or magnesium, that they were mining and people were complaining that it's giving disease and sickness. And I said, why are you guys complaining? We've been mining this thing all the time. And I said, oh my God. Because you've been mining all the time, people should not complain because those in the past have endured it. No, that is wrong. You've been mining it all the time, and what is the receipt? What is the result? What can you show for mining magnesium or bauxite for all these while? That is what you have to think about. We've been mining all the time, and what do we show for it? If nothing, why do you keep doing the same thing and receiving nothing? But creating diseases and sickness among your population, and which they tell you or try to tell you, and you ignore them by saying, oh, we've been doing this all the time. We have to think and think hard, Ghana. We have to think and think hard. There are solutions. Now, I have prepared solutions for almost everything that Ghana goes through. You don't need dollars to be wealthy nation. You don't need anything. It's very simple to move a nation forward. And so I'll be coming again on a segment to talk about the import ban and those things that they send the bill to Congress, to Parliament to discuss, so that they can ban those items. And the other thing they added to it is to protect domestic industry and so on and so forth. These arguments have been churned out several years, and it's not shown any change. What we are doing is not working. Do something else. Thank you.